Hello and welcome to this short video from the technical team at Rivermeadow Software. In this first video we will demonstrate the migration of a simple application from one AWS region to another. We'll be using an application called Drupal, which we can see is up and running. Moving along, let's take a look at the Rivermeadow portal. We're a SaaS product, so most of the work we do today will be done from here. Let's look at some of the components. Target clouds. We deploy a small appliance in our target cloud to enable us access. Next, let's take a look at sources. In order to migrate a machine, whether it's virtual or physical, we need to add it as a source. Surprisingly, clicking on Add Source will take us to the wizard. The first thing we need is an IP address for the source machine, so let's enter that. Next, we need to enter some credentials. We're going to use root and put in the password. You could use any account that has sudo privileges. We have the option to add tags for Rivermeadow, which makes management much easier. Here we'll just add a couple that make our life simpler later. So once we've done that, we're going to add the source by, you guessed it, clicking on Add Source. With the source added, we can now go and inspect it to check it's ready for migration and then configure the migration. Let's do that by clicking on the little cloud icon. First thing to do here is to tell it which cloud we're going to. We can use stored information from a previous attempt. We can migrate just the data, or we can ignore the validation errors at our peril. Let's click on Check Migration Readiness and run some pre-flight checks. As you can see, we're going to run some checks on the target cloud, and then we'll run some checks on the source. As you can now see, we check the cloud appliance for readiness and check it's working. And we also check the source in multiple ways, so this takes a little bit longer. And we can expand the checks to see everything that's going on and the progress of each. Once that's done, we can move on with the confidence that our migration will be successful. Notice we get a warning here. This warning we can safely ignore as it's something that I know about. Had this been an error, we would have to take some notice and maybe take some action. Let's click on Create Migration Profile to begin the migration process. So Rivermeadow gives us a default name for this migration profile. We're going to change that name to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Then we can see the details of the migration that we're going to do, where from, where to, and which instance name we're going to use. We can also add those Rivermeadow tags again. We can schedule this for a later time if we wish to. Obviously, if we do it later, we'd spend a lot of time watching white space, so let's schedule it for now. Global settings apply to all virtual machines in this migration plan. We only have one VM in our migration profile, but we may have many. We can change things like the security group, the IAM role. We can use this to create AMIs. We will by default put this into Migration Hub, and we can add AWS tags to make life easier when we get this machine into AWS. We'll just add one for the name of the application. In the migration profile, we're also able to customize the settings for individual virtual machines within this group. Right. Let's customize that machine name. That'll give us a new name for the cloud instance. Then let's give it some storage. We're going to give this GPS storage, which gives us those interesting I/O figures. Then we're going to add a network interface, and we're going to put this machine on a particular subnet that we've already created. That done, we need to add a public IP address for the demo. So assuming we're using shared tenancy, which we are for the demo, we can move on and select an instance type. We're going to use a T2 small, which matches the source VM. Next, we need to add a security group. This is over and above the one that Rivermeadow will add. We're going to use RM app testing, one we created earlier. Some of the following fields will be familiar to you, as they're also in global settings. So we have the option for an IAM role, we have the ability to create an AMI, we have integration with the AWS Migration Hub, we have the ability to add further tags. Notice that the tag we created earlier is here. We have the option to automatically shut down the source machine after it's fully migrated. Let's click Continue. Notice we get a reminder about the warning we received previously. We know that's not going to cause us a problem, so let's continue anyway. This will start the migration. So stow those tray tables, make sure your seats are in the upright position. We're going to run through some further pre-flight checks. This will happen fairly quickly, and then we'll begin the migration for real. So migration is in flight. Now we're going to look at the migration screen. Given this is a demo lab, we only have one migration currently in flight. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on the plus sign to expand the screen. This gives a summary of the migration that we're currently doing. We can see target, source and appliance. Perhaps we want more detail. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come across and click on the eye icon, which gives us some much more detailed information, gives us that same summary information, but also allows us to see the migration steps that we're currently working on. We start with instantiating the target machine, which becomes our target worker. We then work through several steps, moving through to step 5, where we actually collect the data. This migration we have 20 steps we're going to work through. Step 5 is the collection of data, where we actually move the data across. For the sake of brevity and sanity, we've sped this up a little. However, it's worth noting that the durations that you see on screen are the actual durations, and therefore represent real timescales for the migration. So we can now go back to the migration screen and see that the migration is complete. If we open up that summary tab again, we can see that we now have a public IP address on that virtual machine that we've just migrated. So let's copy paste that IP address into our browser and go and see if the application's up and running. And voila, there's Drupal, clicking on the link, and there's the opening page. Migrated successfully. Okay, let's try something. Let's go back to the original target machine. We're going to change some data on there. We're going to put in an article. We're going to call the article Full Migration Complete. And then we're going to sprinkle in some text. This could be anything. We just want to make sure it works. Then we're going to click on Save. Let's quickly check that worked by going to the home page. And there's our new article. Right. Let's see if we can get that to update to our cloud instance. So we're going to run what we call a differential migration. This will copy the differences. Migrations have a plan, so we can schedule them. Again, this would be pretty boring if we scheduled it for later, so we'll schedule it for now. We'll accept the default name and we'll leave everything else at defaults. So we'll create the migration profile. Again, it'll do some quick pre-flight checks on the differential profile this time. Check that the differential is going to be successful when we run it. We see that rsync warning message again, but don't worry, we're okay to proceed, so we'll click on Migrate. Because I bore easy, let's check the migration details, and we can see that there's only 4 steps this time, in which case we'll whiz through those, and then the sync is complete. Okay, let's close that down. Looking at the migration screen, the differential is complete. So let's go look at the target machine. Drupal's up and running, and ta-da, there's that update that we did. We've managed to sync it across and make sure that both machines are in sync. Great job. I hope you enjoyed our video. There will be more, so come back soon.